Today in the world of cannabis, a Washington state judge dismisses a lawsuit filed against a vape company. Some European nations begin experimenting with recreationally legal cannabis programs, and data reveals where in the world cannabis research has been most widespread. It's Thursday, September 17th, and this is your TRICHOMES Morning Buzz.
Broadcasting live from the TRICHOMES.com studios in Southern California, it's time for your Morning Buzz. We bring you late-breaking news that keeps you up to date with what's happening in the cannabis industry.
First up, MJBizDaily reports that a Washington state judge has dismissed a lawsuit filed against cannabis vaporizer company Canna Brand Solutions. The lawsuit filed by Payallup Tribal Police officer Charles Wilcoxen in September 2019 named 6 Washington cannabis companies whom Wilcoxen alleged cause a vaping-related lung illness. Wilcoxen said in the suit that he contracted lipoid pneumonia after using a cannabis vape product distributed by Canna Brand and created by the China-based company CCell. In his ruling, Pierce County Superior Judge Michael Schwartz wrote that the suit shall be voluntarily dismissed without prejudice and without costs or fees to any of the parties to this litigation. We stand by our CCell vaporization products, Daniel Allen, founder and president of Canna Brand, said in a statement, adding he felt vindicated by the judge's decision.
And next, although no countries throughout Europe have yet to implement full cannabis legalization, lawmakers in some nations are beginning to initiate cannabis pilot programs for medical and recreational cannabis use. Cannabis Wire reports that for the past 4 years, European lawmakers have been working on ways to safely begin legal cannabis sales. Similar to cannabis legalization movements in the United States, some European Union nations are generally more accepting of the idea of legal cannabis than others. For example, while Luxembourg inches closer to becoming the first European nation to legalize cannabis, the country has faced setbacks due partially to its open border policy with neighboring nations such as Belgium, France, Germany, and Switzerland, who have historically rejected the idea of cannabis legalization. However, there have been signs that lawmakers in some of those nations are updating their views on cannabis legalization. Researchers in Switzerland, backed by government officials, have called for testing on how legal cannabis distributed by pharmacies would impact public health. Medical cannabis is legal in half of the European nations, including Germany. The governments in Denmark and France have been weighing medical cannabis legalization. In Holland, an experimental program to legalize the production and sale of adult-use cannabis is upcoming. For at least 40 years, cannabis use has been largely tolerated in the nation's cafes.
And finally, as evidence of the medical efficacy of cannabis on a myriad of health conditions continues to grow, an increasing number of countries worldwide are conducting medical research on cannabis. The cannabis platform GrowCola aggregated data on the number of global cannabis studies to determine which countries have allocated more resources to conduct cannabis studies into the Cannabis Research Index. The index looked at 527 clinical trials reported to clinicaltrials.gov. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the data showed that the United States has conducted by far the most research on cannabis, accounting for 312 of the 527 reported trials worldwide. In the rest of the American continents, Canada accounted for 45 of reported trials, while the rest of American nations accounted for only 9. The European nations accounted for 86 trials, with the United Kingdom making up most of those, conducting 33 respectively. In the Asian continent, Israel accounted for the majority of clinical trials, conducting 27 of the continent's 35 studies. Both the African continent and Oceania rounded out the bottom of the list. The data suggests that cannabis research has yet to be adopted in those regions, with both continents accounting for only 4 clinical cannabis studies.
And that was today's Buzz. Thanks for listening. For more cannabis news and insights from industry professionals and a place to discuss these stories and others, visit trichomes.com.
And be sure to catch up with all of our other cannabis-related podcasts like Hash It Out, The High Ground, or Careers in Cannabis wherever you get your podcasts. For trichomes.com, I'm David Fortin.
And I'm RJ Balde. Take care.